Hi, I'm John Sarakis, and this is The Climb, brought to you by the Digital Mastermind. Our show here is about journeys. It's the podcast and the video cast where we talk to digital agencies about business, marketing, and technology. So if you want tips, tricks, tools, mentorship, join a peer group of digital agency owners where we have constant communication via Slack for all your questions and concerns. We have bi-weekly calls where we stay on the top of the latest and greatest. We have one of the most spectacular yearly meetings. So if you want to grow your agency, go ahead and contact me. Visit us at digitalmastermind.com or shoot me an email, Jon, Jon, at digitalmastermind.com. And remember that this is live, so all interactions are welcome. Feel free to chime in with a question or a comment at any time. Today, we're going to talk about how to fill your pipeline. So Dave, why don't you come out here and let's talk about pipeline.
Let's do it.
So pipeline is fairly new to you, right? Is this something that you tracked back in the day before we merged?
So before the merger, I was the only salesperson, and I'm not a sales person, so I wasn't classically trained on how to do any of this kind of stuff. So I didn't have I didn't really use the CRM. I didn't have any way to track proposals or any of that kind of stuff. So, the whole sales pipeline development process, all that was pretty much brand new to me, and that was primarily the reason why we merged.
Yeah, no, it's something that's inherently important. It's one of those things that'll keep you up at night if you don't have enough people in it. With COVID right now, I'm sure that's happening to a lot of people because a lot of the tactics that you would typically use and strategies have changed or need to be modified to some way. And there's also the component where a lot of this is in people's heads, right? So, but before we get into the pipeline, there's always some things that I like to, set the table with, right? So like these are things that need to be addressed before we get into, how to build your pipeline. And one of those, it's super important. It's going to become more important as markets begin to get saturated, is the question you need to ask yourself and your company: how are you different, right?
Sure.
So, and I can run down some of these things, right, to just give people an idea, So for instance, when it comes to difference, a lot of people are going to go with price. That's, to me, dangerous, right? So that's a race to the bottom.
That is a race to the bottom. I mean, anyone that is interested in race to the bottom, just don't do it, or you're gonna create yourself a miserable company that you hate working with,
and you're gonna hate the people you work with.
Yep, because you have to also chase bottom talent to carve out margin.
Yep, and the only way that I've seen this work, and it's temporary at that, is when you do something at such a rate your competitors haven't figured out how you're doing it yet. They will figure it out because these are people that are also in the price game,
yep.
Right? So they're going to continually, do whatever they can to just get into the same game with you. It was offshoring at one point. Everybody's going to offshore, right? And if you're selling, some type of, tool or widget or whatnot, people are going to just match your price or do it for the same price. Some people are also going to cut off their noses to spite their face. It's an ugly game. So if you are selling on price, I wish you the best luck. This probably is not going to be, the podcast for you. I love filtering, right? That's also part of sales. Number two, and how you're different. All right, so are you first, right? And these are the things we're going to build on for conversation, right? So if you are first, that's great. First to do something, create something, but remember that only lasts so long. Is it the characteristics that differentiate you? So, for instance, you got speed, you got warranties, you got customer support, and remember that those only work if your competitor doesn't have that characteristic. So, if they have it, then you have to cross it off the table. Right. Are you endorsed or recommended by a specific group? Right. So, Dave, you were in the car industry for you built software for the car industry, right?
Correct.
What was the differentiator that you guys had to sell into the car industry?
At the time we were the first. It was the only people doing business intelligence software for the, OEM car manufacturing industry. I mean, you could always say like a Microsoft, there's analytic platforms and there's business intelligence platforms that are generic, right? But we were building it specifically for the dealership. So we were just taking a broad concept of technology and then narrow casting it towards a specific industry so we could show expertise And so there's pros and cons for that, because the targets were there's not a ton of different types of dealerships, and we sold the software to Ford. We didn't go around selling dealership to dealership. It only worked if all dealerships did it.
Right.
And it was really cool. I mean, I learned a lot of interesting stuff.
And so, all right, we take that, right? So some of the differentiators there, and this is, for somebody that's in sales that they could pull off, right? All right, so you were the first, and at that time you were the only, which those are fantastic differentiators. And then you also had a robust client list, right? And then
that's what we were required. I mean, this company went through 2 acquisitions while I was working with them. It was just this little British company, and then they got acquired, and then they created a Florida office, and then got acquired by Snap-on Tools. So I mean, the market saw the value of what was going on here and the amount of data. I mean, because imagine, once we got into Ford, we had sales data on every single Ford dealership in the world. And that's why Snap-on bought it, because they wanted to know how to sell their tools to these dealerships. And so they mined the data to know exactly what to sell.
That's a smart buy. Yeah. And another example of why differentiators are so powerful, not only from the sales side, but also from the revenue side, where somebody's going to see the attraction of it. Right. And I think too many people, when it comes to differentiators, they instantly go to the specialty, right? So the niche that's really popular in the agency space. Yep. But there are others, right? You can be the market leader, right? You can be endorsed and recommended by a specific group, right? Think if you're going to go to cars like JD Power and Associates, right? Or More Doctors Choose, fill in the blank, or dentist, so on and so forth. Some of that, of course, is on the product side. But specialized, when it comes to like specific niches, you have people that like, oh, we only focus on hospitality. But there's also other people that are in that space. And then you have to segment that differentiator by, well, now we're the biggest or we're the fastest. And then it gets into what I think is kind of a ridiculous game. Some really good examples of like spectacular, specialization are, you ever heard of the company Lefties?
No.
This company only makes products for left-handed people.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Absolutely. It's like 10-15% of the population. But that is a fantastic differentiator. Like, that's all we do, right? And then you're going to be the market leader for that. You're right now, as far as I know, they're one of the only, at least from a brand position standpoint. But like, that is the type of differentiator you need if you're going to play in that specialized space. And it's only a matter of time before others do, so you can own the brand perception for that.
Sure.
Some of the others too, you have technology and process. Those get, beat up pretty hard when it comes to agencies. A lot of people are using the same tools, so I don't necessarily recommend those. But ours is customer experience, right?
Yep.
So we're going to do technology, we're going to do processes, we're going to do a lot of the same things, but it's the way that we go about, our work with the client and the experience that they have that is our big differentiator. And of course, all of our work is done in the US. And if I was another agency, that's what I would focus on. What is that absolute extreme focus on customer experience from the moment that they contact you all the way to the end? And that is one of the reasons I believe we've been so successful.
Well, we roll that all up into just calling it being the easiest company to work with. I mean, all those things add up to it's got to be easy to work with us. And technology is not always that. There's a lot of people that get friction when it comes to working with technology companies. So we just try to make it easy as possible, and it works out. And then that really brand trust is key there. So we get a lot of repeat business and residual clients because we earned their trust with a partnership, not a vendor. So
and referrals.
Yep. Which
is a big component. All right. So there are plenty of different ways, obviously, to differentiate yourself. I mean, this list could go on and on. At the end of the day, find yours. It's going to add a ton of confidence, and it's going to help you build your pipeline, because you're going to understand the next phase, which is defining your ideal prospect, right? Your ideal customer profile, which is an important thing, right? So at the end of the day, this is important because it's, who do you want to work with? When you know who you want to work with, it's going to help you target that. And there's a ton of different ways to do this. There's none of it's perfect. This is essentially a composite of your best clients, right? And if you're going to build a composite, some of the characteristics that should be in there, what is the profit margin on that type of work or that type of client you're going to work with, right? The ease of the work, right? The morale. Does your company, do your employees and coworkers like doing this type of work? The size of the company, that's also a graphic that you could use to find these. The number of employees, the industry, geography. What does this composite look like? And that's essentially your ideal customer profile. Whatever it is, put that together based on who it is that you want to work for. So now you have a target, right? So for an example, I'll give you ours. We're transparent. We work with companies that typically have more than $2 million in revenue, a website, 3 people, in either a marketing department or an IT department, to give you an idea of the types of companies we work with. And those are all things you can glean from online profiles. And it's not always that way, right? But that gives us a target for the types of people that we're going to work on. We also do work with other agencies. Those other agencies run the gamut. At the end of the day, that typically is agencies that don't have the same talent that we have on our development side.
Yeah, the one thing that I really, really enjoyed about what we did during COVID to really narrow in on who that was is we really looked at all of our customers and why we weren't getting affected by the shutdowns and everything. And we kind of realized that, our clients are typically essential, businesses. And, when we saw logistics and construction and infrastructure, and we never even thought about it, right? We never aimed to go after these. It just kind of happened. And so once you get one, you kind of tend to get others. And then if you like being in that industry, you can really dig into it. But I really liked the idea that once we looked at it, we said, hey, we're working with essential businesses. And, it's great. Even agencies, our agency clients are essential businesses. People need those services, and they're not going away just because of a pandemic. So,
yep. Any business that serves an essential business is also deemed an essential business.
Yeah. So,
and once you have your ideal prospect, your ideal profile, right? A logical step is to, actually, no, this isn't a logical step. I'm just going to call it out. This is something that I think entirely too many people don't focus on, when they're going to build their pipeline, is answering this next question. Why would anyone want to talk to you, right? And it is.
Good question.
You have to
call people don't ask that.
Right. So they think they can go straight with all these like little, features and benefits that we're going to talk about.
Yeah. Are you interesting to talk about or talk to,
Right. Are you a good conversationalist?
Yeah.
So some of the things here, just do a self deep dive. This goes into the person, the salesperson. What's interesting about you? What's interesting about your business? Is there something new? Do you have questions that you like to ask? Like what's amazing in your company today? That's one that Dave, likes to ask. I do as well. But really knowing what motivates your customer and understanding why they buy from you, why they would want to talk to you, and just understanding what motivates people. And there's tons of psychology books and whatnot. I'm not going to go down that rabbit hole. I think these are some simple questions that you can ask yourself without sitting on a shrink's couch. But do you have something compelling to say? Figure that out, right? Okay. And then some of the other points to that, do you want to help them? And I mean truly help somebody, not acting like it. Anybody can smell the disingenuous, car salesperson vibe. Just really come from a place of really wanting to help someone. If you also are funny and you can make somebody laugh, that's also something. Everybody loves to be entertained. I shouldn't say everybody. Most people love to be entertained. That's something that you can really use to your benefit. Can you provide insights? This takes a deeper dive into the help side, right? So if you can provide insights on why something isn't working in a company, or you're just, you have a knowledge base that you can share in such a way that somebody's going to be interested, because at the end of the day, what you're telling them is going to help their business in some way, that is going to be well received. And that is going to be a compelling conversation. So at the end of the day, have something to say that they want to hear. And you should know that from the start.
It doesn't really come down to like, what problem are you going to solve for them? nobody wants to hire someone just to do, to tread water, right?
Mm.
You want to move the ship, and we say push the needle all the time. You got to be capable of doing that and explaining that to the client of what you're going to do for them and what problem you're going to solve. Otherwise, you're just doing maintenance, or you're just treading water. You're not really going to make an impact, and then that's a client that you might lose. If you can't continually make an impact or solve problems for them, make their life easier, then you need to know that. Like, sometimes we get hired by agencies just to do their maintenance work. And you could say, well, David, isn't that just treading water? No, because I'm solving a problem. I don't describe it to them as, hey, let me just do your maintenance work. I say, let me make sure that your key developers are leading the spearhead for your new projects, so your new clients are ecstatic for working with you, and they're not constantly distracted from the maintenance style projects. We'll handle that stuff. You just focus on the new projects, and that's the big problem we're solving for them, because then that opens up their capacity to onboard. And onboarding is sets the tone. If you have a bad onboarding experience with a client, chances of you having them in 3 years probably drop by 50%, right?
Oh, shit.
Or more?
3 months. I mean, if you onboard bad, somebody's chirping in their ear, this isn't going the way it should. And there's scar tissue getting created.
Correct. So
I take that. I'll start with the capacity, right? So I'll start with, all right, it's either it's capacity, you don't have the capacity, and then let's explore what that does. And those are great points that you have there. Or is there something that, are you either losing money based on inefficiencies, or are you losing money because this is something that you can't even do, right?
Right.
So, and they're just really simple tenets that you can, or strings rather, that you can, continually pull on, and they'll lead you into directions. And also, if you enjoy being a problem solver, it's fun as shit to get onto a call where you get all this mental stimulation and all right, and then what I think is cool now, being in a business for so long, is wow, I'm pretty good at this. It's a really confident building situation that you can give somebody all these insights and help them, and not be one of those people oh, well, no, you have to pay for all of our ideas. Well, give them some nuggets, give people some insights that they can snack on, some gifts, because if you don't, the probability of getting to the next stage is going to be pretty limited. So
I've been thinking about this a little bit recently, about how back in the day I was in the chess club, and how I love chess. And I was thinking, how do I apply that to business? What about business and what we do relates to chess? And I was thinking, all right, chess is a set of rules. And if you can apply them in the best way possible, you're probably going to win. And then that is exactly how I approach business. If I can apply the right decisions at the right time and make the right moves, we're going to get something successful for our clients. And that's what I love about what we do every day.
What I love about timing is it's so difficult to always get timing right. Timing's a challenge, right? So if you wait too long for something, then it passes you by. Or if you wait the right amount of time, it bears fruit. You act too quickly, you move, so it's interesting. And I don't know what happens in a chess club. My chess is limited to, I've played it online a few times. I didn't have anybody in my life that bestowed chess. I could play a mean game of checkers, right? But I think at the end of the day, depending on who goes first, you figure out the pattern and win. But timing is something in sales, which we're going to get into lead sources here in a second, is so important. And I know even in chess, where you move too soon on something, it's cool.
You get exposed.
Game's over. Yeah.
Yep.
So, which goes into these lead sources, right? So, number one, and this is right. This is all right. How are you going to fill your pipeline? This is now where we're getting to answer these questions, right? In some of these, you probably know all these, right? Hopefully, if you're working in sales, you do. But we're going to add some subpoints to these and add some context that may be able to help you. Or maybe you don't know some of these, right? So number one that I always tell is always start with your sphere, right? These concentric circles based on the people that you know, right? Friends and family being in that tight one, and then of course you have neighbors and maybe people that you go to church with, or your chess club, or you see at football games, right? So start with that. And then all those people should know essentially essentially what you do, and then who you do it for, your ideal customer profile. What are your points of differentiation? They should know essentially what is your sales pitch. And then we'll get into what creating a sales pitch is later on another episode. I already have that all planned out. But everyone should know what it is that you do, that's in your life, and who that you do it for. And they should be reminded of this. And don't be like a sleazeball about it. Like, hey, it's the weekly call where I'm going to tell you what it is that I do and who do I do it for. Nobody wants that call, right? So just genuinely be a good person, get in their world and understand what's going on with them. And then say like, hey, I'm looking for business. This is essentially who I do it. This is what I do, and this is who I do it for, right? And then another thing too, if you know me, there's a chance if we haven't talked in a while, you'll get a phone call from me, because everybody in your phone, and I got a lot of contacts in my phone, so this can really take the energy out of me. But everyone in my phone at some point gets a call from me, and it could be 2-3 years later where we haven't talked, and I just want to have a conversation with you. If you have a phone, I would bet that most people in this agency business have at least 500 contacts in their phone. Maybe this is also a good exercise where you could delete some. But at the end of the day, have you gone through your phone and had a call with those people in there who have had some form of a relationship with you and talked about what it is that you do and what it is that you do and who you do it for, and also figured out how you can help them? What benefit and value can you give them? So at the end of the day, all of your friends and family should know exactly what you do and who you do it for. And if you don't believe in what you do and who you do it for, this is a great exercise because you're not willing to tell them. And then you just need to find a new job, right? So here's another filtering component to this. And also go through your phone. Have a conversation with all the people in your phone and just check in with them, see how they're doing, and talk about what's going on in your world and get into theirs.
And don't be afraid to ask your network who they can refer you to. I mean, just flat out say like, hey, this is what we're doing. Like, and I know you might not be able to use it, but who can you introduce me to?
Yep.
That might need this. And so tell your network. We just talked about how we differentiate ourselves and all the attributes of what we look for in our ideal client. Tell your network that, hey, the people that we work best with is logistics companies. Do you know any? Because when people are asked a question like, hey, do you know anybody that we can work with? They're going to go blank. But if you say, hey, do you know any logistic companies? They're going to go, oh, yeah, hey, my one friend works at, CSX or whatever. So you have to give people the context so that they can think and so they can find the information that you want. Otherwise, you're just going to get nothing. So,
man, that was super ironic there. I just forgot that.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. So if you, and it goes back into saying something compelling and being a good conversationalist, right? Because if you just say, I'm looking for business,
right?
What are you doing? Yeah. You're just wasting two people's time, right?
Correct.
But yeah, if you say like, hey, these are the types of companies that we work with, this is the type of thing that we do, and if you could make some introductions, I'd really appreciate it. And then also, what can you do? Do you need help washing your car or whatever it is that you want to, essentially repay that favor? That's how you have to go about those interactions. And you have to get better at these things, remember? So you have to look at like, all right, how did that go? Or when you get something positive, okay, what did I do that moved the ball forward, right? Document those. Just continually do them and get disciplined at being the best that you can be.
Got our first comment in. This is my old boss, Pablo, from the first job that brought me down to Florida. Awesome boss. Used to play chess all the time. And let me tell you, this is a good prompt. Pablo told me one piece of advice that impacted my life in such a big way.
Right on.
It still impacts me today. And he taught me the lesson of knowing the value of your time. And I never really understood this. So my dad always told me, do it yourself. You don't need to pay someone to mow your lawn. You don't need to pay someone to do this. Like, try to figure it out yourself and all that. And Pablo was like, why do that when you can pay somebody $20 to mow your lawn while you go make $150 an hour solving a more complex problem? And I approach everything that way now. And it's mind-blowingly efficient. So I don't mow my own lawn anymore. I pay someone to do that. That's my time to work on sales, work on $10,000. We talk about in our agency all the time, for our management, work on $10,000 issues, not $10 issues. Let somebody else figure out $10 issues.
Highest and best use.
Yeah,
absolutely. No, that's a great lesson. I learned that somewhere along the way, but we have a landlord in this building. I doubt he's listening to this podcast, but even if he is, I'll tell the story. He was coming in here and like fixing like all these like locks and everything that were here, and I was like, don't you have somebody else that gets paid substantially less than you that does all this? And he makes this argument, gets in an argument with me, and I mean, we're friends and whatnot. And I was like, all right, dude, I'm just telling you, like, all right, if you're making a few $1 million a year, which I'm pretty sure you are based on the amount of real estate that you own, somebody else should be, doing these locks. And, of course, we just leave. He's like, no, that's fine. The next day, there's a guy out here doing the locks.
Look, I take it all the way to the nth degree in saying I want to make sure my local economy is strong and my network. I believe that it's my job to keep my network strong. So the people that are around my life and in my life, I want to keep them strong. It's the reason why I'm a big tipper when it comes to my like barber, or we were thinking about doing some cleaning thing for this condo project we were working on. And my wife's like, should I just do this? I'm like, no, I need to make sure our, cleaning lady is got business. And because I don't want her having to find another job and then I have to find another cleaning lady. So the people that surround us and the people that are in our lives, you got to keep them strong. And if you've got the means to do it. So the people that don't want to spend on all those services aren't really supercharging the economy. And I want to be a supercharge. I want to be a turbo.
I like that. I'll be honest. Yeah, I don't look at it that way. I look at it as functions that I don't want to do, and I think that's granted that's a positive benefit. And speaking of cleaning ladies, just upgraded our cleaning lady, so we were paying $80. What's that?
It says this new one has 4 arms. It's upgraded.
Oh, dude, like it's insane how much better. So I don't know if this is kind of a tangent, right? So our other cleaning people, I want to say they were $80. Right, or something like that, maybe $80, $100
per service.
They'd come, they'd clean the house and whatnot, and they didn't do windows, they didn't do this. It was a cleaning service, so they'd always have different cleaning people that came, and some of them you're just like, oh wow, like I can't even believe these people are in my house. And then some of the others were really great, and we're like, all right, hey, we want those. But anyway, so it was all over the board, inconsistent. So a friend makes a referral, like, you have to use my cleaning lady. It was like, okay, she's over $200 per clean, right? So I was like, damn. And my wife said, like, no, this is spectacular, and it's a mutual friend. I was like, all right, that's fine. So we let her in. Holy shit, it's worth $300. Like this, right? It's like if you're getting ready to sell your house, boom. Like this is the type of person that comes in and cleans. Like it's fantastic. So there's no way I could ever get it cleaning that. It'd take me like 2 weeks to clean my house in the way that she and her helper does that, in a matter of like 2 hours.
But if you even take it to the deeper level, like if you keep your network strong, then your network is going to come back to you and ask you for a website because their business grew or something else grew, or they need help with Facebook advertising. I mean, if I help everyone in my network grow that's close to me, and I'm not talking about just casual acquaintances. I'm talking about, people you rely on or people that do stuff for you. That's going to come back to you every time. And you're talking about pipelines, using your network in that manner will grow your pipeline as well.
Yep. No, I agree. Bringing it back to pipelines. Thank you. I am tangent oriented. Next point I think a lot of people miss on is, calling current and former clients, right? If it's a former client, depending on why you left, I think it's a great way to just reestablish the relationship and see if there's potentially any work there that you could, get from them, as well as maybe even look for referrals. Maybe they've gone in a different direction. Maybe they've outgrown you. Maybe you outgrown them. But I think it's a great opportunity to have a conversation with them. And if it left on bad blood, see if you can, make it water under the bridge. Just have a conversation. If they're not willing to do that, all right, cool. On to the next one. The other is check in with current clients. Have a conversation with your current clients and find out if there's potentially any other projects. Work with your account managers on that. If you're the account manager, that's up to you. But also ask them directly for the referrals. Hey, Is there anybody that you could refer to us, for the similar type of work that you're doing? Or is there an introduction to somebody that you think I should know? Just introductions in themselves also increases your sphere. And I think that's a missed opportunity that a lot of people don't ask. So if you don't even directly ask for the referral for the business, ask for a connection to somebody that you should potentially have a conversation with.
Yeah, I mean, it's sometimes that's tough. I mean, a pissed off old client is hard to re-engage, but it's happened before, and I didn't get any business out of it, but I did repair the relationship. And
there you go.
Maybe one day there will be some business. But just to do a quick story here, we had a client. We built this custom platform. It was working. It was great. The client's wife became our point of contact, and she started sabotaging us. We went from heroes to zeros in 6 months after she started being the point of contact, blaming us for everything when everything went smooth the year before that. So it started to break down, and we had them hosted at Rackspace. But they kept hearing Rackspace and thinking just some random rack at some random hosting company, not the actual company, Rackspace.
The generic brand name of.
Correct.
Yeah.
So a local company, this company is in Orlando. So a local random generic hosting company convinced them that we did not have them on an enterprise level infrastructure, and then convinced them that they would get their product that we built running on an enterprise level cloud, Amazon cloud, stuff. So they did that, and it was like 2 years later. It was a real bad ending. 2 years later, the CEO comments on one of my LinkedIn posts and just said, "Hey, how's it going?" And we started talking again. Turns out that they basically traded us in for a cut rate bullshit company, delivered on none of their promises, and then they had to sue them. And they got nothing. They basically lost 2 years of progress because they got suckered away from us. And, there was a giant hassle. He literally, and he's a lawyer, so he sued them.
And then he and his wife got divorced, right?
I doubt it. I don't know, maybe, but I really despised her at that point because she literally poison pilled the relationship when we had a track record of success and everything. And I'm like talking to the CEO. I'm like, you have to know that's the issue, that the only thing that's changed in this relationship is her. And because she's the wife of the CEO, she could get away with anything. And even though she wasn't trained in software development at all and had no clue about it. So it was terrible.
Stayed at a Holiday Inn Express, though.
Yep.
And I think this is business, right? So we're always going to run into those things. I think that's something that people need to take away, that there are shitty people out there. We've had situations where a CEO would step out and then somebody else steps in. They think they know better. They feel that there's insecurities that they have that we're now going to take work from them, or they want to try to look smarter. Yeah, I mean, that sucks. But I also think it shows a lot of class and character. When you still reach out, you still want to have a relationship be cool. And if it's up to them or they don't want to be honest and direct about what's happening, all right, cool. That's fine. Yeah. That's completely in their court. All right, I did everything that I can.
When the ego gets in the way of the proper solution or the proper, the right answer, then that's when you're in that's warning signs for me. Like if I've got to make a decision based on your ego rather than the right, process, then I know.
Or if you're not willing to have a direct conversation about what really matters, and then you want to hold it in and then be rumorville or, just talk bad about somebody. It's like, all right, well, you don't have the character necessary to be in the relationship that, we want. I think those are also things to just understand from a personal development standpoint, right? Especially in sales, you're going to be dealing with a lot of people, and just, all right, there's 3% of the population that no matter what you do, they're not going to be happy or satisfied. And the internet is full of that. Most of them on Reddit.
Right. 100% true.
All right, number 3, if you want to go ahead and fill your sales pipeline, is job boards. This is a great opportunity. In some of these cases, you may be met with resistance, but you're an amazing salesperson, so it doesn't matter to you. You're a champion, and you're going to go get the deal. So check out Indeed, Monster, even the ladders. Reach out to the hiring manager. right? So, and also on some of these companies' websites, they're going to list some of the jobs that they have. And you may be able to fill that capacity or that knowledge depth gap until they find that full-time person. And who knows, it might lead to something that continues. So for instance, if there's somebody looking for a marketing director role, you potentially reach out to the CMO. You might be able to help them. Maybe you have experience in that transitional period as an agency. So look at the website, LinkedIn, figure out who that hiring manager is and reach out to them. If you can't figure that out digitally and you just, want to reach out and call. I think that's fantastic too. Find out who that hiring manager is and see if you can have a conversation with them.
That's going to be tough. I mean, I think calls, I don't know. I guess you're doing a lot of calling. I guess I'll just kind of kick it back as a question to you, because I would imagine I pretty much have Shanoa, our administrative assistant, on a rule of just don't let anything through that isn't a current client. Like, I'm not taking a sales call from anyone, period. I want an email. I'll take an email, but what is your experience with just cold calling for information? Like, how do you get past the gatekeeper?
It's tough, right? So I don't look at it as just one. So I'm big on a system. So it's the rule of 3 Ps. Positive, persistent pressure is going to get whatever you want. So if you can't find them on LinkedIn, you can't find them on a website. If you literally just call, say, hey, you have an open position for such and such role. Curiously, who is the hiring manager for that? And they give it to you. Like, all right, you can ask to get transferred if you want in that situation, or if you chicken out, you just want to hang up, which is fine, right? Everybody knows their strengths and what they're good at. Although I do recommend you go for it. Then you find that person on LinkedIn and then you connect with them. Or and to not be able to find them online, I think is that's, if you can do your due diligence, somebody's probably going to connect you with that. And I'm not saying do it under the guises of that, like you're going to fill that position for them. Like you want that. I don't ever start a relationship with a lie. But yeah, cold calling, I think it's also it's having a compelling reason to talk to those people and then not being all hung up on it and just being completely honest. Like, yeah, hey, I saw that you got a job opening out there. This is the type of work that we offer. Is there any opportunity that we could explore, helping you out until you find that person? Like that's the conversation.
That's exactly how we landed one of our clients. A marketing agency in Kansas City put a post out there for a WordPress developer. And I knew somebody that knew somebody. And so I asked them, I'm like, hey, they're looking for a developer. We can help them. And then they don't have to get, caught in that every 6 months trying to replace a developer process that so many agencies are in. They got the introduction. I had to educate them a little bit about what it means to white label, because they've always worked with, their full-time employees. And then we got a sample project, and then boom, then we're off in the running. I mean, that's a great. I wouldn't say it's a great lead.
It doesn't always work,
right?
It's just these are things, and this is what I tell people too. It's you can focus on one of these and grow a monstrous pipeline, right? Or you just go through the list and you continually figure out which ones work for you, because it could be all. Granted, I don't see how you'd have the time, but that's why we're just going to put a whole smorgasbord of concepts together and figure out which ones work best for you.
That's why I was just thinking through that. If you were an agency going after traditional direct clients, then finding out what they're hiring for might not necessarily be that impactful for that scenario. But for agencies that are, when they post a developer job, that's like that's like fish or blood in the water for us.
So let's say that it's a large company and they're looking for an SEO specialist, right?
Oh, perfect. Yeah.
Looking for, a content creator of some sort.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, those are just, all right, cool. Let's align in. Let's go ahead and just have a conversation. We can fill this role. But if you're too, high and mighty, and you're one of the proud agencies that's like, oh no, we got to take it all in, and we got our whole discovery and strategy process. I got a phrase for you. You don't deserve it, so you're not going to get it.
Right.
So you have to be willing to take on that little piece to get that bigger piece. And even the large companies that think this way just murder their sales and create just solid pipeline, because they understand, all right, we're going to get this little piece and then it can turn into something big because we're amazing at our execution.
So we just signed one of those exact, scenarios. It's a small intro project to a giant company. Like it's one of our largest clients ever. And we're on the spear tip of getting that. And it took us to just be humble and just say, what can we do right now? What small project? And we're going to crush that. And then we're going to have an awesome new relationship. And so sometimes that's get your foot in the door because you can build trust from that.
I'll even start there because in that exact example, there was this giant, elephant that they were proposing, right? And it's just like, no. Like, what's the smallest thing that we can do right now to chop off an agreement so we could figure out working, what it's like to work together? Because, hey, who knows? You guys might hate us.
Right.
And just, all right, be understanding that that's how that relationship could go. And granted, it wasn't for their legal department. We would have had that signed 2 months ago.
And an interesting kind of side note is that we actually worked for this company as a white labeler from another agency from 8 years ago. So like we have intimate knowledge about their stuff. We just can't tell them that we did.
Yeah. They don't even know that. That's funny. I didn't even think about that.
And we can't really share it either.
Yeah. All right. So another one, this might be your go-to, but some people forget it. It's industry publications, right? So there's business journals have their book of lists. I think they're in like 60 to 70 markets. A lot of people use that. You have Inc. 5000. We were on that list. So that's a trigger for a lot of people because our email box and phones have exploded with people saying, hey, we want to pitch you a video concept or fill in, whatever it is that somebody's selling. But at the end of the day, it works because you have a reason to talk to somebody and you now have a list to go down. You contact all 5,000 people and somebody is going to bite, especially the more compelling offer you have and the timing and need fall into place, right? So for instance, Clutch, that's a lot of agencies use that. Agencies that work with agencies, it's a directory that's kind of a no-brainer for them. You also have your associations, whether it's the American Marketing Association, if you're looking for companies to connect with directors. In any event, when there's an industry publication, it gives you a form of focus that you can contact those people. And when it's something like the Inc. 5000, you have a compelling reason to reach out.
And I would just add that going on to your earlier point about knowing exactly who you want to work with, don't just scattershot. I guess maybe some people just want to hit everything on the Inc. 5000, but put extra effort into that 10% of the list that is your ideal client. So send them something or prepare an insight or prepare something more than just, hey, I'd like to do some business with you. Here's a link to tell about us. Because if that's your ideal client, you want to get them. You've got them on the hook. You've got a contact. Go get them.
Yeah, and you can make those
like number 5,000.
Right. So, for instance, I'm going to an event today where it's bring in the 10 companies that you want to work with, right? And then based on the number of people that are there, and then it's our director of corporate relations that's actually throwing this event, right? That's his idea. Sweet. And in that, you bring in the 10 companies you want to work with, and out of the 15 people, there's potentially 150. Somebody's going to have a connection, more than likely based on one of those companies that you want to work with. That's the idea, right? You have all these, power players, right. And that's that focus. Like who do you want to work with is really important. And also, I'm a firm believer in focusing on less. So if you have let's just take the Inc. 5000. I mentioned it a few times, and we were on it, so it feels good to do the little humble brag. Or is that that's not even a humble brag? That's like a fucking flat out brag. But in any event, right? So the 5,000, I would never go after that. That's entirely too big of a list. Even if I was selling like pest control services for companies, right? I would never do that. I would take like 15 to 20 and figure out how I could get into those 15 to 20, and then I would use whatever skills I have. For instance, I'm pretty decent at copywriting, and I would craft those email message to them. I'd write a script, get them on the phone. I figure out some insights, and then based on that, I'd probably have 1 or 2 sales. I'm assuming that rather than me going all over the place with the 5,000, because that's just not how my brain works. That's just I'm not the numbers guy. But at the end of the day, the 10 to 15 is also the same number of approach. It's just the amount of time that I'm spending on those to get what I want.
So has the Oyova sales team filtered the list of the Inc. 5000 of just the marketing agencies.
So not for the marketing agencies, no. That could be something. My experience with going after the Inc. 5000, because we've had, I think this is our 4th company now that we've had on there, client-wise. We were like, okay, we had 2 on there previously, was to go after. I think it's a bad fucking idea because everybody is actually getting blasted with all of these contacts. So,
yes, correct.
And I think it's something you could maybe go to later on, maybe take, 2015s or 2016s and go after, the companies that aren't on there. But I know other companies are having success. That's why it's on my, list of potential areas to focus on. So yeah, I think it's way too much because even myself, I'm usually a pretty easy person to get a hold of. Not anymore because our receptionist has the same rules. Like there's, it better be a bona fide sales call or I'm not
right.
taking it.
Right.
All right. So another one I've mentioned plenty of times is strategic partnerships, right? So we've got some great relationships. And then in some of those, right, you can do referral fees with some of these strategic partnerships where you pay, 10%. That's a pretty common going rate, and actually pay it so you have the reputation of other people knowing about it, and it's just good integrity. The other is with some of these strategic partnerships, you can do co-branded content where you maybe share with them, and it's essentially a promotion component where you're using their distribution or vice versa. You're sharing your list with them. But strategic partnerships, and there's all types of different ways that you can figure out how to find fruit in that relationship, are really important. And at the end of the day, if you're going to look for them, it's typically a tool that you use that has a like audience, or somebody that's also selling to the same customer segment that you are, whether it's service related.
Yeah, I mean, strategic partnership is how you grow early when you don't have all the components like a sales team or a marketing team or advertising. I mean, that's so key. And I mean, I could probably do a stat on how much money we've paid out in referral fees. And I think that's super key, is to make sure that it goes back to the same point I was talking about. I'm building my network. If somebody wants to do a strategic partnership with me, then I want to funnel as much business I can to them because it's going to come back to me. So, the famous BNI catchphrase is you got to give to get. And I believe in it. You gotta loop people in when they're needed, because then they're going to think of you. And when your expertise is needed. So 100% strategic partnership. How do you find them though? Like, what's your strategy on identifying those?
So some are going to be from salespeople that are reaching out to you, and I recommend starting the conversation with them. Like, hey, look, I'm not interested in buying your product, but I know we sell to similar audiences. Would you like to, have a conversation about what it would be to potentially share contacts with each other, right? Another thing I tell strategic partners, if it's just a person, right? There's companies too that we have these relationships with, but it usually, all right, who is their person that's in charge of business development? A lot of times it's going to be somebody in the C-suite. Is, all right, you can go through anybody on my LinkedIn list, and if I know them, or I'll do an introduction, with you. That's one of those basic ways. But also there's also companies that you can reach out to and just say like, hey, let's just have a conversation, because at the end of the day, all marketing and sales is just conversations, a series of conversations that lead to a transaction. Looks like we have some comments in here. Let's see what we got. All right.
We got Ryan. Too many great growing companies out there not getting any attention. Find them, help them grow, and you have a long-term relationship.
Amen to that.
Follows that up with, usually they're not in pretty industries, but love marketers who know how to make their industry appear as exciting as they think it is. And I mean, that comes down to, our essential client, our logistics, our infrastructure, those. I mean, those aren't sexy industries, but if we can bring a really high-end touch to their marketing and their website, so one thing about those industries is that the average is really low. So when you bring,
what average?
Just the average of the polish for those kind of companies. Like, think of,
the bar is set really low.
Correct, right?
Yeah.
The average. And so when you deliver like a high-end, top-notch website and user experience for their industry that just blows all the others away, it really differentiates them to their market, and then you just look great for doing that as well. So
another thing too that this reminds me of, actually, Taylor Trusty, a good friend and guest on the show. I think he's episode
3, I think 3 or 4. Yeah.
3 or 4. Yeah. He said when he had his agency in Louisville that he would drive to these like remote places, to these like manufacturers and these like companies that are just out in the middle of nowhere that make like tractor equipment or something, or boiler makers, and nobody ever would visit them, right? Because they're 50 or 60 miles out in the middle of nowhere, and they were just so happy to have somebody interested in them. And he was able to, he's an amazing salesperson, but that was one of the, components of him being able to sell those people.
Right.
It's like, yeah, dude, nobody takes interest in this. Nobody's out here. And I was like, oh, I love that.
And those are companies that are like doing real business and making, they're manufacturing and they're making, tons of money. You're not trying to help a startup launch or anything like that. There's real revenue. And if you can support that and increase the top line and affect the bottom line, then you got a customer for life.
Yeah. And that's just hardcore kissing. That's actually not even on the list. So I'm happy that Ryan gave me the idea. But yeah, that's something where you could go door to door, and if you have the right touches, you're going to get some business. All right. Next, this is kind of multifaceted depending on how you want to do it. Host an event. For instance, like I mentioned, our director of corporate relations hosting a networking group meeting today. Some things I've also done in the past. Some of these are pre-COVID. Maybe you want to do it via Zoom or Microsoft Teams. You could do a monthly breakfast, lunch, dinner. There's happy hours. You can do those virtually if you want to. It's not really my thing, but I know others are doing that. And also hosting a webinar, right? So this could be one of the co-branded pieces that you work on with your strategic partners, or potentially another company where you're buying access. A lot of associations provide this, and promote the hell out of it. Get as many people as you possibly can. And you can either sponsor it, you can speak yourself if you have something compelling to say, or get a speaker, right? And that could potentially be free or something that you pay for.
You don't really have anything to add to that.
Nothing to add.
Pretty solid.
All right. So number 8, last one. And I put it last because I think it should be one of your last resorts after you've explored some of these others. But maybe you want to start with it. And it's, get access to a database, right? So for instance, like Zoom Info, there's other tons of tools that are offering strong information that help you get in touch with the people that you want to get in touch with. So you can literally just get your list, take your ideal customer profile, find, some compelling contacts to reach them, your pitch, whether that's going to be an email or you actually want to do a cold call, or, do a direct mail piece, whatever it is, to put together your system. You can literally just go through your list. I recommend working on like 15 to 25 at a time, and you can garner sales that way to fill your pipeline.
Yeah, I've never done this route, and always felt like the worst way, and I don't know.
It's not easy. No,
I'm resistant because I feel like you'll end up loading up with maybe clients that you don't want.
Potentially, yeah. But so I think some people approach it where they're looking for a sale. I don't think that's the best way to approach something. I think you need to look just to have conversations and with the best fitting people. So there are other elements that you can use to drive that relationship forward.
So something I just thought of, and I think we kind of touched on it in some other points, though, is that when you're reaching out to these people, have an alternative offering. So, for example, when we reach out, when I talk to, I'm in a couple other groups with digital agencies, and when I interact with somebody, I try to help them or whatever. If they don't go a different route, that's fine. I then go, hey, I'm a member of Digital Mastermind group, which is an amazing, peer group. Are you interested in finding a new peer group? Having that other thing to offer them makes them feel like you're not just a cold call. You're not just trying to get business. You're actually like, hey, let's establish a relationship here. And I've got something else to offer you. If you don't have to, use my services, but can you contribute to help make my other group, make Digital Mastermind group more valuable? And if you can, come on along. So
Yeah, and I could add some points to that too, right? So if we wanted to get like super focused on the agency side, let's say that you do paid search, you can find other you can literally mine, Google's data with tools like SEMrush to find people that are just offering shitty that just have shitty ads, right? So you have those. Number two, when it's SEO, you could do SEO lookups to understand what people's SEO profiles look like, to get an idea of how you could potentially help them out. You could look for errors on their websites, broken links, 404s. So there's all these other like little nuanced ways that you can, go about it. And you could start with some of these lists based on the types of companies that you want to work with. There's also, back in the day, was looking at ads that weren't laid out properly, or maybe that magazines laid out that didn't have the same care or creative understanding that agencies did, where you could then reach out and contact them. Television ads too, especially locally, Bay News 9, they have their own production department that they'll throw them together, and half the time they look like shit. So I know other agencies will literally contact those companies to potentially become their agency of record. So there's a myriad of different ways. At the end of the day, I think this is a really good high level to start on. And if you have any other questions, just feel free to email me, Jon@digitalmastermind.com, Jon. Oh, looks like we have a comment in here. What do we got?
We have a question.
Oh.
This is from Pablo again. How do you manage your pipelines? What do you find works best? I think that's the key thing that most companies fail at. I know people say use CRMs, but there's more to it than that. So I'd like to see your suggestions and ideas. I definitely have some of my own, but Jon, why don't you kick this off?
Yeah, great question, Pablo. I think at the end of the day, the tool is only as good as the person that's managing it. So I know some amazing salespeople that just use a spreadsheet, right? And they use that spreadsheet, and they have it set up in such a way that they can reach out to people. We use Pipedrive for our CRM, and all deals and opportunities go into Pipedrive, and a deal or an opportunity is defined as some modicum of work to come from it, right? We have an idea, or there's a concept or something, and those stages are pretty simple, right? It's like, all right, idea, presentation, and then proposal. So I think at the end of the day, it's whatever tool you're going to use based on your own preferences, right? And it's just making sure that you use it, and then managing your pipeline, meaning you're actually going to put the deals that are in there.
So for me, I'm going to just continue off of your theme of just, it doesn't matter about the tool. What matters is the process, right? Not only did we set up Pipedrive, but we have a document that describes how we're going to use Pipedrive to process our pipeline and to get deals, and then how to turn those into proposals and how to get proposals signed. And we have a document we can refer to every single time. So there's no guessing. It's not about style, right? Salespeople aren't going to do different things. This is our process, follow it. This is how we're going to do it. And that's why it stays efficient, because if your process is just to let every salesperson do their own thing, then that's crazy. So you need to have the processes written down in a way that they can get to it, so that the tools you are using are used to their maximum effect.
Yeah, and I think it's essentially the process for managing the pipeline. You can go about your sales any way that you want, as long as you put the deals and the actions that you're going to take into the CRM.
And then we have our weekly accounts call where we kind of talk through them, and that's that team selling approach that you talk about all the time, is like, get ideas from other people in your team. They might see something you don't, and give you an angle to pitch or to develop that lead, or So if you're about to reach out or call a company that is an ideal fit for you, it's your perfect type of customer, make sure you got some ideas to go with. Don't go with just one idea. And if that doesn't work, what are you doing? You're hanging up, and then you're probably never going to get that answer again. They're not going to answer you. So make sure you have some options, and good ones, good options.
Options equal power.
Yeah.
All right. Great comments and questions. Other than that, if you'd got any other questions or comments and you're watching this in a recording, feel free to shoot me an email, Jon, jon@digitalmastermind.com. And if you'd like to join the Digital Mastermind, go ahead and send an email to that address as well. That was a wonderful look at Dave's desktop there. It's a beauty. And I appreciate everybody listening, commenting, and tuning in. I look forward to the next time. Thank you so much. Bye now.